Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The sprawling city of Everwood was a study in contrasts. Towering skyscrapers cast long shadows over quaint neighborhoods, where family-owned shops lined busy streets. The rhythmic pulse of daily life masked a deeper undercurrent, a world of secrets stained by the lurking shadows of despair and crime. On a chill autumn evening in 2015, the tranquility of the town abruptly shattered. At precisely 8:32 p.m., a piercing shriek rented the air, sending ripples of panic through the streets. The source of the sound was 17-year-old Mia Torres, a local high school student, known for her radiant smile and infectious laughter. She had been walking home from a study session at a friend's house when she stumbled across a scene that would rewrite the narrative of her life. Mia found an abandoned alleyway, the pungent smell of decay clinging stubbornly to the damp air. In the inky darkness, she glimpsed a figure sprawled on the ground, motionless and still, heart racing. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her voice trembling as she relayed the haunting discovery. As the sirens wailed in the distance, the vibrant colors of autumn seemed to drain from the world around her. Mia knelt beside the body, her eyes wide with horror. It was a young woman, perhaps in her early 20s, whose lifeless form lay strewn amid the refuse. The faintest trace of lipstick on her pale lips hinted at a life recently lived, now tragically extinguished. The police arrived moments later, their blue lights illuminating the cold concrete. As Mia stepped back, officers cordoned off the area, cautioning her to stay behind the tape. For Mia Torres, that night was not the end. It was only the beginning, the descent into a world of darkness that would unveil the hidden horrors of Everwood and test the boundaries of her resilience. The victim. The young woman sprawled in the alley was quickly identified as Lila Martin, a recent graduate from Everwood University. As the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating the world with a haunting twilight glow, her past began to unravel like the soft pages of a well-read book. Lila was known among her peers as a diligent student and an aspiring journalist. Friends described her as fiercely passionate, the kind of person who could get lost in a conversation about social justice or local history for hours. She had dreams of uncovering truths and giving a voice to the voiceless idols that drove her to take on a part-time job with the city's struggling newspaper. Many in the community admired Lila's zealous commitment to her work, but perhaps it also made her a target. As detectives combed through the scene, they began piecing together Lila's final days. Reports from co-workers revealed that she had been working on a story about corruption in the Everwood City Council. Over coffee, a close friend recounted conversations about Lila's recent fears. It was as if the shadows that hid the city's grime were reaching out, seeking to silence her. Intimate details of her life began to emerge. Lila lived alone in a modest apartment a few blocks from the university, juggling her journalism career and freelance gigs to make ends meet. Though her friends insisted she was cautious and aware of her surroundings, her pursuit of the truth may have led her deeper into treacherous waters. As the hours turned into an agonizing vigil, the detectives stood in the flickering glow of the streetlights, contemplating the implications of Lila's life and death. There was a story waiting to be uncovered beneath the uncertainties of the city's facade, and they were determined to find out what had silenced her voice forever. The crime scene. The alley where Lila Martin's lifeless body lay was nestled between two aged brick buildings, a forgotten passage rarely traveled by the bustling population above. Overhead, a rusted fire escape clung to the side of one building, casting eerie shadows that danced in the flickering light. A thin layer of grime blanketed the ground, edged with scattered remnants of the city's refugia, stark contrast to the vibrant life Lila had once lived. Detective Mark Henderson arrived on the scene just after the coroner had begun their examination. His deep-set eyes scanned the area, taking in the grim tableau with a practiced gaze. He noted the position of the body, arms thrown aside as if Lila had been caught off guard in her final moment. Her clothing, a worn black jacket and jeans, was slightly disheveled, suggesting a struggle had taken place. A forensic technician crouched beside Lila, meticulously collecting evidence. Henderson leaned closer, inspecting the ground for any trace of the struggle. Blood spatter illuminated against the concrete, glistening like sinister constellations under the harsh glare of the crime scene lights. Closer examination revealed a small, forgotten silver necklace, tarnished by the surroundings, lying just inches from her outstretched hand. "Found anything?" Henderson asked, glancing at the technician, who shook his head slowly. "No signs of defensive wounds or sexual assault," the technician replied, his voice subdued. The absence of conventional signs left him questioning whether this was a crime of passion or a calculated act meant to silence. As the moon rose full overhead, illuminating the alley with a cold light, a chill settled deep in Henderson's bones. Everett was known for its dark alleys and hidden secrets, but tonight felt different. Lila's passing echoed a deep-rooted issue that lay beneath the surface, intertwining the lives of its residents. What had she discovered? Whose truths had brought her here, to this alley? At this hour, it was a web begging to be unwoven, and he was determined to untangle it. The early investigation. The sun rose hesitantly over Everwood, casting a pale light over the stark crime scene, now a mere echo of chaos from the night before. Detective Mark Henderson gathered his team, their expressions a mixture of determination and wariness. The small room at the station buzzed with the low hum of activity, filled with the sound of keyboards clacking and phones ringing. The detectives understood that every second wasted could mean losing a vital lead. Their first priority was to delve into Lila Martin's life, unearthing any clues that might connect her to the dark underbelly she had seemingly stumbled upon. They quickly shared contacts, friends, classmates, co-workers to gather as much information as possible. Henderson scribbled a list of names on a worn legal pad, the ink an embodiment of urgency against the ticking clock. "Let's start with those she worked with at the Everwood Herald," Henderson instructed, handing out assignments. A rookie detective, Kelly Ramirez, collected the notes, her face betraying a mix of eagerness and apprehension. It was her first major case, and she wanted to impress her colleagues. As the day wore on, the team conducted interviews, piecing together the details of Lila's recent movements. Co-workers expressed a blend of admiration and concern about her latest story, rumors of corruption. Within the city council, a fellow intern mentioned late-night discussions of her findings, whispered fears of danger. There was a palpable sense of tension. Lila had attracted attention, both supportive and threatening. Meanwhile, Henderson sifted through Lila's social media accounts, looking for threads that could lead him to her last connections. Photos emerged. Bright moments of laughter, protests attended, rallies fought for causes near her heart. But there was one image that sent a shiver down his spine, a cryptic post from just days before her death, accompanied by a shadowy figure lurking in the background. Details blurred yet ominous. As dusk crept in again, the weight of uncertainty settled over Henderson and his team. They were on the trail of something bigger than a single murder. The murky waters of city politics threatened to pull them under. The investigation had only just begun, but the flickers of danger were already illuminating a path fraught with peril. The dead ends. Days turned into weeks, and the air thickened with frustration as Detective Mark Henderson and his team combed through leads that led nowhere. Lila Martin's murder had unveiled a network of shadows and conspiracies. Yet with every piece of information uncovered, the truth seemed to slip through their fingers like sand. Henderson sat in the precinct's conference room, a whiteboard cluttered with photographs and handwritten notes, forming a chaotic tapestry of Lila's life and connection. Each thread displayed the potential for discovery, but too often, they spiraled into a tangled mess of contradictions. It had called in a series of individuals tied to Lila, friends who appeared supportive yet claimed to know little about her work, co-workers who deflected questions about her investigation, and even city officials who denied any wrongdoing. Rookie Detective Kelly Ramirez presented a lead from a bar down the street from Lila's apartment, known for attracting a rough crowd. I spoke to someone who claims they saw Lila there the night before her death, she said, an edge of hope in her voice. Yet, as she pressed further, the witness changed their story, revealing they had been mistaken, or perhaps too drunk to remember. Another dead end. As the officers trudged through interviews and alibis, a sense of hopelessness permeated the precinct. Each person who had claimed to support Lila ultimately underrated her warning signs, their narratives riddled with uncertainty. Henderson held a pervading sense of urgency. Was Lila's story lost amidst the cacophony? Buried beneath layers of denial, frustration built as they scoured surveillance footage, searching for the shadowy figure that appeared behind Lila in the grainy image. No matching profiles emerged, and the anonymity of the streets began to feel infinite. The more they dug, the more they exposed the community's reluctance to speak out. The shadow of intimidation loomed large, casting doubt on whether they would ever uncover the truth hidden just beyond grasp. The team convened for a late-night meeting, fatigue etched into their features. Henderson sighed, staring at the assortment of unsolved details scattered across the table. "Every road we chase dead ends," he muttered, exhalation heavy with resignation. Despite the setbacks, they knew one truth remained. Lila Martin would not fade away quietly. They owed it to her to continue seeking the answers that eluded them. The fight for justice had merely shifted gears, and they were prepared to press on, no matter the cost. A break in the case. It was a gray morning when a sense of renewed energy electrified the precinct. Rumors of a break in Lila Martin's case began to swirl like leaves caught in a sudden gust of wind. Henderson had just returned from a lengthy debriefing, surrounded by the noise of the station, when Officer Ramirez burst through the door, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Detective, you need to see this," she urged, holding a stack of papers as if they were fragile pieces of glass. "I just got off the phone with an anonymous tipster." Henderson's heart hammered in his chest as he followed her to the conference room, eyes narrowing on the documents she placed in front of him. They had information about Lila's last days, but it wasn't easy for them to come forward. They mentioned an argument, Ramirez continued, looking up, eager anticipation flickering in her gaze. The tipster had claimed to have seen Lila at the bar again, but this time she wasn't alone. This time, she wasn't alone. She had been arguing heatedly with a man in a dark jacket, his expression obscured in the shadows. The conversation had escalated, drawing attention from nearby patrons. But the most alarming detail came from just a few nights before her death. Witnesses claimed they saw Lila in the company of known local political figures associated with corruption claims. That could explain the shadowy figure, Henderson murmured, his thoughts racing. This was the first tangible connection tying Lila's investigation directly to someone with power and influence. The urgency to act swelled. Who were they? Henderson pressed, wanting specific names. Ramirez pulled a few more documents from the stack, revealing photographs of both the man in the bar and the political figures who'd been scrutinized. Henderson squinted at one face in particular, the recognition washing over him. It was Councilman Eric Flynn, a controversial figure embroiled in numerous scandals, well known for leveraging his authority in the local community. Henderson felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. If Lila had confronted him, this could have been a motive. But as he glanced at Ramirez, he realized they weren't just chasing leads. They were beginning to unearth a profound network of deception and danger surrounding Lila's death. Get me everything on the hand. We're not letting this lead slip away. As the team sprang into action, a renewed sense of purpose cloaked the room. The shadows that once obscured the truth were beginning to part, and Henderson was ready to chase down the menace lurking within. The suspect. The atmosphere in the precinct was charged with anticipation. Detective Mark Henderson and his team had pored over everything they could find on Councilman Eric Flynn, unearthed documents suggesting a web of corruption involving kickbacks and secret deals with developers. With Lila's escalated confrontation about corruption leading them to him, Flynn had now transformed from a mere figure in a photograph into a prime suspect. It wasn't long before a meeting was arranged to confront him. Henderson and Ramirez prepared meticulously, reviewing the evidence and crafting their approach. They understood the stakes. They weren't just dealing with a local politician. Flynn held the power to manipulate narratives and could easily rally the public in his defense. As they entered the polished office downtown, the contrast was stark. Ornate decor surrounded them, framed photographs of Flynn with smiling constituents lining the walls. Each image a carefully crafted illusion of charm and charisma. But Henderson sensed the tension that underlay this facade. Flynn greeted them with a rehearsed smile, his demeanor cool and collected. But the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes didn't escape Henderson's notice. Councilman Flynn, we'd like to discuss Lila Martin, Henderson began, watching Flynn's expression carefully. She had some concerns regarding your recent dealings. Based on witness statements, it seems the two of you may have crossed paths recently. Flynn's smile faltered, a flicker of discomfort passing across his face. I barely knew her. Many young people come to me for advice. It's not unusual, he replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his tone. Ramirez leaned forward. Witnesses claim you had a heated argument with her, just days before she was killed. You can see why we're concerned." Henderson watched as Flynn's composure cracked. Just the slightest shift in his posture. His bravado flickered under questioning, as if the shimmering surface of his confidence was suddenly breaking, revealing darker waters underneath. "We all have disagreements in our line of work. It's competitive out there," Flynn dismissed, his voice taking on a strained edge. He gestured toward his assistant, hovering nearby. "Look at my records. I was there at the time. The footage will show." Henderson felt a surge of determination. "You want us to trust you based solely on your word and a few security cameras? Lives are at stake here, Councilman." As Flynn faltered, he fumbled for control. A man suddenly backed against a wall of his own making. Henderson knew there was more to uncover, but could feel the fraught tension, whispering promises of secrets yet to be unearthed. Flynn was the first tangible lead they had, yet it was as if he had transformed into a chameleon, deflecting every question like armor. "Let's not pretend this is over," Henderson stated, his voice firm. "We'll be keeping a close eye on." As they left his office, the lingering tension foreboded that this encounter was only the beginning. The storm lingered just beyond the horizon, and Henderson was convinced Flynn was hiding something far more sinister than he cared to reveal. The trial. The air inside the courthouse was thick with tension, the hum of whispered speculation merging with the rustle of legal documents. As the trial of Eric Flynn commenced, it drew press attention and community interest. Everyone had an opinion on the affluent councilman accused of being a direct link to Lila Martin's tragic death. Henderson and his team had spent months building their case, piecing together evidence that would stand up to scrutiny under the harsh glare of the courtroom. Flynn stood at the front of the courtroom, flanked by high-profile attorneys, his once composed demeanor now shadowed by the weight of the accusations. The prosecution presented a carefully constructed narrative. Witness accounts of Flynn and Lila's encounter in the bar, coupled with evidence of heavy financial transactions linked to the councilman, painted a picture of a man who had everything to lose, driven to silence the young journalist who threatened to silence the young journalist who threatened to expose him. As testimony unfolded, Lila's friends shared their memories, their voices trembling yet resolute as they recounted her passion, her dreams, and the ominous change in her demeanor as she felt eyes closing in on her. Henderson sat among them, a palpable sense of both pride and heartache washing over him. He had fought diligently for Lila's legacy, bringing forth each piece of evidence for the world to see. The atmosphere shifted when a key witness, the bartender from the bar where Lila had last been seen, took the stand. His testimony was shaky at first, but when he described overhearing the heated exchange between Flynn and Lila, a collective gasp rippled through the audience. She was scared. She said something about needing to be careful. Flynn was angry, the bartender recounted, his gaze unwavering. Cross-examination revealed cracks in Flynn's carefully curated defense. His attorneys battled to undermine the bartender's credibility, but the jury seemed unconvinced, leaning into the compelling emotional weight of Lila's story. Henderson sat with bated breath, holding on to every promising word. As the trial stretched on for days, the pressure intensified. Days blurred to late nights as the city held its breath, anxiously awaiting the verdict. Finally, after closing arguments concluded, the jury retreated to deliberate, leaving behind a charged silence that enveloped the courtroom. On the sixth day, as the jury filed back in, Henderson could feel the weight of history in the air. The foreman spoke clearly. "We find the defendant, Eric Flynn, guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the death of Lila Martin. Gasps erupted throughout the room, a mixture of shock and relief spoiling the air. Henderson remained seated, his heart racing. This victory was not just for himself, but for Lila, a long overdue measure of justice in a city riddled with darkness. As Flynn was led away in handcuffs, the sense of closure that swept over the courtroom was bittersweet. While the verdict didn't erase the immeasurable loss, it sparked a conversation about accountability and the price of truth. Henderson knew this wasn't the end. It was a beginning. Lila's spirit now resonated beyond the shadows, waiting to inspire change that reached far into the future. The aftermath. In the weeks following the trial, Everwood experienced an uncomfortable shift. Eric Flynn's conviction hung like a cloud over the city, transforming conversations among citizens and council members alike. Some whispered about justice finally served. Others viewed the conviction as a mere facade, a symbolic nod to accountability in a city still troubled by stigma and corruption. Detective Mark Henderson found himself reflecting on the case in quieter moments. Lila Martin's name had become synonymous with bravery, sparking a renewed fervor among community activists pushing for change. Memorial marches were organized in her honor, drawing crowds who sought to ensure her fight for truth was not swiftly forgotten. Henderson often joined the gatherings, their shared resolve reinvigorating his spirits. However, with Lila's newfound legacy came a stark reminder of the pervasive struggles remaining in Everwood. As he navigated the increasingly politicized atmosphere, the bravery Lila had shown felt infectious and tragic at once. A reminder that her story and ultimate sacrifice had revealed a deeper-seated fear within the community. In this aftermath, Henderson was awakened to his own responsibility. He began hosting community meetings, advocating for conversations about whistleblower protection and the importance of journalism in holding those in power accountable. Details of Lila's unwavering commitment to exposing the truth inspired him to champion the very ideals she had embodied. Yet shadows still loomed. Henderson fielded calls from concerned citizens expressing fear for their safety, grappling with lingering threats from those who felt exposed. Former allies of Flynn, now struggling beneath the weight of his conviction, sought to regroup and push back against the momentum of change. The struggle was far from over, and Henderson found himself at a crossroads. She could sense the push and pull of both progress and regression. Months later, he received a handwritten letter. It was from Lila's mother, whose grief echoed through each carefully worded line. She thanked him for the effort put into seeking justice for her daughter. But more importantly, she expressed hope. Her words were heart-wrenching, powerful, a reminder of why he had pursued this case with such determination. Lila opened our eyes. Now it's our turn to keep them open, she wrote. With the weight of her message resting in his heart, Henderson renewed his commitment to the cause, holding accountable not just those who had fallen, but forging a path toward a safer, more transparent Everwood for the generations to come. The battle had merely transitioned into a new phase, and he was ready, driven by the enduring spirit of a young woman whose voice would continue to echo, urging him forward in the relentless pursuit of justice. Reflection. As the seasons in Everwood changed from the vibrant hues of autumn to the stark whiteness of winter, the memories of Lila Martin remaining an indelible part of the town's fabric. Detective Mark Henderson sat at his cluttered desk, staring out the window at the quiet streets, now echoed by Lila's influence. It was hard to believe that only months had passed since the chaos of the trial. Each day still felt heavy with the implications of what he had uncovered, a culmination of fear and bravery that resonated with the very essence of the community. In those quiet moments, he often reflected on Lila's determination, the way her spirit and passion had brought to light a world of darkness that many were too afraid to confront. He knew it was more than just seeking justice. It was about the fight to honor a truth that stretched beyond a single murder. She had ignited a spark among those who stood ready to resist corruption, an energy that could not be extinguished. As he flipped through the pages of Lila's notes from her investigation, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that though the fight against corruption and injustice was far from over, every small step created ripples of change, spreading outward, inspiring others to stand up and speak out. In the reflection of their struggles emerged a connection, a community ready to uphold that legacy, ensuring Lila's voice traveled beyond the shadows of fear. With a resolve steadied by remembrance, Henderson was prepared to continue marching forward. He knew that every story deserved to be told, and every voice needed to be heard. Lila's legacy would not just become another chapter in Everwood's history. It would be the beginning of a long-awaited transformation, one that sparked hope for a brighter tomorrow.